Since you mentioned the Congress, some people do, in this environment, seem to be concerned about IRS fishing expeditions. To what extent does the service use the Schedule 990 information to develop and target its audit activity?
Well, Mike, the IRS always uses tax returns, or in the case of a 990, which is technically not a tax return, it's an information return. IRS is always using these returns in order to determine what areas they need to target for audit, which organizations, or in the case of 1040s, which individuals need to be audited. So yes, specifically with the 990, it's used as a basis for determining how much auditing should be done, which organizations should be audited.
I'm curious, Allen, is it strictly the financial data from Form 990 that the service looks at? Or is it the governance information also of significance to the IRS?
Oh, most definitely, the financial information is not the only things the IRS is going to look at. They want to look at the governance questions. They're trying to determine or identify organizations that are not well governed. And they're not looking to do anything to harm them, but possibly educate them as to what is better governance. So, for example, there's a question on the 990, and I'm paraphrasing it. Was this 990 reviewed by the governing board prior to being filed? And when that question first popped up several years ago, we were all in a quandary, because it says, was it reviewed by this 990, was it reviewed by the governing board before it was filed? A lot of organizations were afraid to say no, but they couldn't really say yes because it wasn't reviewed prior to being filed. It doesn't have to be reviewed prior to being filed, but what is the review policy? And there's a follow-up question on the 990 about what does the board really do to review the 990? And we'd write an answer which would describe the board's activities. I at one time was the chair of the audit committee of a local charity, and we, as the chair of the audit committee, would review the 990 and then go to the board and review it with them, so that we were able to say, yes, we reviewed it before, but in order to do that, we just had to go on extension for several days. But we were able to check yes. Wouldn't have been awful if we checked no, as long as we explain at the next question what the board's practices are. The IRS is interested in things such as that. Potential donors are interested in issues such as that.
Well, that makes sense in terms of compliance. But I've also read about a long-term IRS study on the connection between charities' tax compliance and their governance practices. That could be interesting, couldn't it, Allen, especially in the context of religious organizations?
Most definitely, Mike. Compliance has become, in the last 15 years or so, maybe even 20, one of those buzzwords, compliance. We're in compliance with this rule and this law and this grant and this contract. So many organizations now have a chief compliance officer, even mid-sized nonprofits. They may not have that title, but someone is in charge of making sure that the organization complies. The IRS is looking at all the compliance questions on the 990 for the same reasons. They want to make sure that the organizations are complying with other tax laws, in addition to filing a 990 every year. Potential donors in the know. Foundations, for example, are interested in knowing that the organization is complying with other tax laws, because they want to make sure that the money that they're going to give to this charitable organization is going to be used appropriately and not misused for things that would make it not in compliance with the terms of the contract.